Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow with Lance and Katie. Good to see you both. A lot of information keeps on coming. Let's just go over the house rules. I haven't done that in a while. Please ask questions. You can send it directly to Joseph. You can send it to Lance and I. Our emails are very difficult. Lance at Coleman Report, Bob at Coleman Report, Katie at Coleman Report. But so that's simple. Also, the PPP answer desk is doing well. Hey, what these are is you should download this if you've attended this webinar. It's training, right, Lance?
Absolutely, Bob. And SBA enforcement and review procedures were kind of ramped up this year. They were starting the process last year, so having a good record of your training is very important.
Please don't send me an email at the end of December saying, hey, we need all the certificates for what we did last year. I mean, we'll do it, but it's actually, I don't do it. I send it to Joseph and he starts screaming. Katie, real quick, this came out today, or I guess over the weekend today, this morning, talking about EIDL advances. And so we have a couple questions on it. Can you get an EIDL advance? This is the new procedure. Katie, what's the date of that notice?
It's dated today, but I'm looking at the SBA, or I'm sorry, the notice itself is dated Friday, but I'm looking at the SBA website and it doesn't seem like it's totally up and running yet. They are contacting borrowers who are going to be eligible for that. So hopefully people will know if they are eligible.
Well, what we want to know is we want to know if you can get both an EIDL advance and a PPP advance or a PPP second draw. 70% say yes, we can do that. 10% say no. Katie, what's the answer?
Yeah, so this program is mostly just bringing it back with a couple adjustments, and really it's going to be the same as the EIDL advance before. So yes, they can have that on top of the second draw or first draw. Both of those. It's going to be really just the same kind of rules, just adjusted slightly. We'll talk about that more in a little bit.
Well, obviously the second one is going to be an easy question. Joseph, can you, second question is, can you get an EIDL advance after a first draw? And Joseph, can you put together a real quick poll? The poll I want is, can you get a PPP draw after an EIDL advance? How quickly, put that as number 4. If you can. Now, obviously, the answer on this is yes. Correct, Katie?
Yeah, I might have given that away a little bit.
Our audience is paying attention, Lance.
Yes, they have the correct answer.
Very good, very good. And which of the following are not eligible? A company whose revenue is down 30%, an NAICS code 72 loan, a low-income area, and less than 400 employees. In other words, 3 or 4 of these we need to be eligible, or I guess one out of 3 of those we need, or we need all 3. Correct? Yeah, we need all 3.
Yeah, so there's 3 of these that you need and 1 that you don't under the new targeted EIDL program.
Well, we have a typo there. Come on, Joseph, I'm going to yell at you. It should be less than 300 employees, so they're correct on that. Actually, it's the NAICS code that we were tricking you with. Revenue has to be down 30%, low-income area. Katie, define a low-income area for us.
Yeah, so that's going to be the easiest way to find that is the SBA has created a tool. You can go to sbaeidl.policymap.com and plug in an address or just simply look over area in the U.S. and you'll be able to see they've highlighted areas that are low income. And that's probably the easiest way to find out if an area is low income.
How's that work, Katie?
It's based on census tracts.
I'm sorry, Katie, do we just type in an address or how's that work?
Yeah, you can type in an exact address. You can scroll over it. It's very similar to Google Maps. So if I wanted to just find a neighborhood, maybe I could scroll over that and see they've highlighted all the low income areas in purple. So it's very easy to tell. But you can put the exact address if you want as well.
Okay, do me a favor, Katie. Put that in the chat box and send to everyone. Do you know how to do that down there?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead and do that. Yeah, and obviously to be eligible for EIDL loan advance, you do not have to be a NAICS SIC code 72 and related entities. Joseph, do you have time to put in a 4 question? That's what I want to know. Lance, how'd they do?
I think they did good, Bob. I haven't read the reviews. So, one of the changes was with several of these programs, and I'm probably going to jump off script here again, as I always do.
It's a Monday. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like the shuttered venue grant. They used to have this big deal that you couldn't get a shuttered venue grant, a PPP loan. In fact, the forms had certification boxes for that, and now they've done an about face on that as well.
Katie, what are we talking about in terms of dollar amounts on these EIDL Advance loans? Actually,
so it's very similar to the original EIDL Advance program, just this one's a little more targeted, like we were already discussing. It's going to be limited to small businesses in low-income communities that suffered a loss of 30% or more and have 300 or fewer employees. So that's really the only difference, is the eligibility. They are going to be issuing this to people who have already had an EIDL Advance, which is quite nice. But they're actually going to be the first ones who will receive these new advance grants. They can be up to $10,000, and that's going to be based on your employee count and things like that. I believe the program will shoot out the response on how much they can get based on their answers. So it's not going to be necessarily a lot of calculating on their part. It's going to be mostly on the program side. Other than that, it is going to be not necessarily that $10,000 all at once. If you've already received a loan, or I'm sorry, if you've already received a grant, it's probably going to be $9,000 or less and then issued over time up to that $10,000 point. Whereas if this is the first time they're receiving an EIDL Advance, they'll get probably that $10,000 total if they are eligible for that much.
Lance, lenders are involved in this program. Give me the logistics of what a borrower has to do and what type of documentation does the borrower need.
You're talking about the EIDL program. Actually, there's little or no lender involvement in this. This is directly through SBA.
If I'm a lender, what do I advise my borrower?
I'm going to direct a borrower to go to the SBA's website, sba.gov. At the top of the opening page is information about various programs. So the main thing I'm going to do with my borrowers who have interest in an EIDL Advance is to immediately share the SBA website, www.sba.gov.
Documentation, tax returns, financial statements.
I'm not exactly sure. From Katie's description, doesn't sound like they're going to have to provide a lot of documentation. It sounds like they're going to have to go into the EIDL application and answer some questions.
Very good. Katie, what's Congress up to?
Yeah, so over the weekend, they passed the American Rescue Plan, at least a version of it. Now, we know we've discussed this previously on the show, and what the House did last week, the Senate ended up adjusting several things. There was a very partisan vote this time, unfortunately. So we have a lot of new adjustments, not so many adjustments, though, to the small business portion of it. The only adjustment I noticed is they did fix that shuttered venue operations grant so that businesses that couldn't get it before because they had a PPP loan, it sounds like they're probably going to be able to get a shuttered venue grant as well if they already have a PPP loan. And that's because of the delayed start. But that doesn't, other than that, I haven't really heard any major changes as far as this portion of it for small business. It still has more money for PPP. It still has that program for restaurants and bars that have lost revenue, things like that. That's all still in there. The Senate does, the House does plan on confirming that. Probably the vote's going to be tomorrow. They're discussing it today, and they're planning on voting tomorrow.
Bob,
Katie, go ahead, Lance.
one takeaway from this, and of course, most everyone on this call is gainfully employed at a financial institution, but when you see that bottom number, over $1 billion to SBA in administrative funding, there are going to be a lot of new jobs at SBA.
Those are jobs.
Yeah. A lot of opportunities. So if you have friends who are looking for employment opportunities with a finance background, I'd be checking the USA Jobs website for SBA opportunities.
And Lance gets a cut from the government for recruiting, right, Lance?
For recruiting.
No.
Well, there was a day, Bob, in the last recession when I was deputy where we were aggressively looking for new candidates, and I'm sure that's the case this PPP.
We have friends. A number of our friends have gone over to SBA. It's a great career choice. It's about service to Main Street, and you can service Main Street either as a lender or as working for the government. So
absolutely,
I think it could be, in the right circumstances, could be a wise career choice. Katie, where are we on PPP? Are we going to get this thing extended to June? I assume that was not. Go ahead. What's going on with that?
Yeah, there's not too much news on it, unfortunately, but there are a lot of trade groups that have signed letters. I've seen multiple versions of the letter, in fact, so I believe there's actually multiple letters out there circulating to try to extend it. A lot of people are saying June. I have seen one or two that are saying till the end of the year, but there hasn't really been any momentum on that yet. It's just signatures and just letters right now.
Yeah, because they got to move on that quickly, don't they, Lance?
Oh, it needs to be included in this American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen, yeah, unfortunately. Lance, what is the realistically cutoff for, I'm sorry, that's my phone. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, you're talking about your PPP applications?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What are they, what are lenders?
Well, of course, it's supposed to.
Now, what's going on? Yeah.
I think it's supposed to expire at the end of the month. So given the situation with hold codes and the length of processing to an approval time, you're going to need to get your applications in probably that third week of March to be able to get them cleared and get them through the program.
Katie, 2 questions just in. People are saying, what is the Commuter Navigator Pilot Program?
I was going to ask that same question.
I have no idea. Katie, you're on the spot.
I don't know the details about it. I'm pretty sure that's just to get more information out to Main Street about where they can get the funding. Other than that, I'm not too sure. I know they're just trying to make sure people know where to get a PPP loan, where to get EIDL advances and things like that.
All right, Katie, you have homework tomorrow. I expect a report on what that is. I assume that's not an airplane type situation. All right. No, we don't know. We don't know. We'll find out for you. So thanks, Johnny and Alicia. Let's see. We got a bunch of questions. Let's go. Mary said, can a person still qualify for PPP if they defaulted on a government loan? Lance?
Guys, I answered this question on our PPP answer forum. If they've defaulted on a student loan, the answer is they can apply, but other types of federal government loans are still a eligibility issue if they've defaulted on those. So if they've defaulted on a SBA loan, a USDA loan, a FSA loan, those would all be a reason for a loan not to be eligible for a PPP loan.
Lance, you got to define default for me. What does default mean?
Well, default, of course, is when somebody gets, default definition, default might vary from programs, but let's just use SBA's. They get 60 days past due and go into liquidation status.
Okay, but they're not, okay, and that's the question. Do these people show up on CAVERS if they're in a default situation?
They only show up in CAVERS when they create a loss to the federal government agency. And my thoughts on PPP is somebody who is defaulted and caused a loss to a federal government agency definitely is not going to be eligible for a PPP loan unless it was a student loan.
Okay. So that's where I was, just to clarify, because if you charge off an SBA loan that goes to CAVERS, You charge off a student loan. I assume that's on Cavers as well. I guess my question is, what's the difference between charge off and something that just defaulted and it's in limbo? We hear stories of loans that have been in default for 10 years and then Treasury gets involved.
Yeah, that's the last collector that the borrower wants to deal with, because Treasury has some really interesting collection techniques, Bob. If you run out to Vegas and
interesting, they'll take it.
yeah, if you're out at Vegas and you have a great blackjack hand, somebody from Treasury is going to pop up right behind you and say, no, that's mine.
You would tell the story in a while. Not everyone's heard it. Tell it when you were at SBA.
Well, I had a borrower at one time that would call me every day and ask why he couldn't file his tax return. And I had to explain that, yes, you can file your tax return. And he said, no, I'm supposed to get a refund and Treasury's going to take it. And I'm like, that doesn't keep you from filing.
Tell me the casino story.
Oh, had a borrower who went to Vegas who had defaulted on a loan, been referred to Treasury, and he had a very nice win at the blackjack table, and the casino had the information about the Treasury referral, and he was not able to take any of that money home with him.
What, 30 grand or something?
It was between 30 and 50, Bob. It's been long enough I forgot the numbers, but Treasury is a very effective collection process.
Hey, we got some more questions. Let's get into it. Francis wants to know, how do we cancel a loan that has been approved but not dispersed?
You're going to do that in the portal. However, I have some concern. Did the new IFR, Katie, allow you to cancel one after it's been approved?
I believe so. They had instructions for when you can cancel and when you can basically clear up until you've got those payments going. You can pretty much cancel it to take advantage of that new calculation. However, they're going to have to use that new form as well when they do that. So when you cancel it and reapply, they're going to have to use that form. And we are getting toward the end of the program, so canceling completely and reapplying is a little bit getting to be a scary thing to do, but you can do it.
Raman asked an interesting question. He says that SBA requires only the 3508S signed with no documentation, but there are some banks that are requiring the full documentation. What should he do when he comes up against that?
The 3508S does not really require documentation. The documentation.
Some of the banks are. I assume he's a broker.
Well, the honest fact is forgiveness. If the bank's asking for the information, you can fight with them or just provide the information. There have been a number of times in my career where somebody's asked for more than in what is required by SBA and their IFRs and SOP. And, the question is, do you fight it or you just provide it and get forgiven?
Yeah, because it's the bank who's signing off on this, and if the bank has a question,
the bank is the ultimate. The financial institution is the ultimate decision maker.
If they want the information, they can ask for it. Yeah. Yep. Sarah wants to know: can we still combine Schedule F and Schedule C for the same borrower?
It
we have a farmer.
It seems to me that would be separate PPP loans.
And if so, which application do we use? Well, if they're separate, then whatever the amounts are, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Jackie wants to know if someone's purchasing an existing business in February 2020, they want to purchase this existing business. In February 2020, the prior owner received a PPP round one. Is the new owner eligible for another PPP? And we get this question all the time. Is that a round one loan or a round two, or can they get one and two if they bought the business?
That's a really interesting and difficult question. And I think a lot of it depends on how the business was bought. If the business was bought and maintains the same EIN number, I would think it is possible to apply for a round two, but in most cases, you're going to have a new EIN, a new borrower, and that would be a round one loan, but it is eligible.
Okay, and it would be eligible for both one and two in that order? Obviously.
Potentially, yes.
And potentially idle. Okay. Hunt says, yes, you can cancel it if you report it in the 1502. We're talking about canceling the loan. Rachel says she apologizes if this has been asked before, but she's still confused. Don't worry, Rachel. We all are. If a borrower is eligible for a Section 1112 payment, which is in deferment, will they be able to collect on the first stimulus due to funds no longer being available?
You're going to have to explain the first stimulus. Is she talking about the first round of 1112 payments?
Yes.
The way the 1112 payments are set up, if you've got a borrower that's in good standing but on deferment, those payments start at the end of the deferment. So, assuming they meet the requirements, they would be eligible.
Rachel, if we botched that, just send us another email clarified, and we will hear that after Katie's homework report tomorrow. Last question. Schedule C borrower using gross income. The portal requires us to enter the business type, sole prop, independent contractor, etc. When the business type is entered as such, the portal does not allow the borrower name to be entered as the LLC, but instead the borrower name will be the individual. The Schedule C has the individual name as a sole prop, but has an LLC for the business name. Sarah.
I'm gonna use.
My head just exploded on that one too. Go ahead, Lance.
I'm going to use the individual name in that case because it's kind of it's going to be required to get it through the portal, So I mean, I think for a Schedule C, a Schedule F borrower, that's going to be an individual name in most cases.
All right. I know we're running late, but I want to get these questions in. Sarah clarifies. She says if it's a Schedule C and a Schedule F question that we had, it would be the same loan because both are using the same Social Security number. Do you agree with that, or do you stand with your original assessment?
I would agree with her. Single borrower, Social Security number, combine them.
Chris says the same borrower can't have two PPP loans in the same round, so why would you not combine Schedule C and F?
Yeah, I agree with that now that she reworded it. Absolutely.
All right, very good. We have Lance. We've got Lance on the straight and narrow. Last question. Can a borrower apply for round one and round two at the same time?
I've been asked that question a lot. I think it's difficult because part of the round two application requires a PPP round one loan number.
Ah.
So if you apply for a PPP round one loan, it's going to have to go into the portal and get approved before you get a PPP round one loan number. So
real quick, Lance. Very good. Lance, what are we talking about tomorrow in our webinar?
We're going to talk about how to pull together a COVID compliant or a pandemic compliant credit memo that will be compliant with the SOP requirements and compliant with the new business environment requirements that exist. So it's important. Your credit memo, I always like to share this. If you have an early default SBA loan, one that defaults within 18 months of the final disbursement, one of the first things out of the gate SBA is going to ask for when you present for guaranteed purchase is your credit memo. And you are going to want to have a very compliant credit memo in that circumstance to perfect the guarantee. So it's not only important in the approval process, it's important in the servicing and liquidation process as well.
Yeah. Lance and I are going to teach that. In fact, I'm finishing it up. I apologize if it's late. Blame it on me. What we're doing is we're going to take the top 5 NAICS codes and have a separate SBA credit COVID memorandum that your underwriters can just check off and make sure they have everything. So that's actually fun putting that together. Hey, Katie, good to see you. Thank you. Tomorrow we are going to talk about community navigator pilots.
Sounds fun.
Lance, good to see you. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a great day.